Hey, Steve here, and today what we're going to be doing is talking about scales and a logical approach to the way that you're going to finger those scales, which fingering options that you're going to have, and why that might be a better choice for you as opposed to the traditional options. So the first thing we're going to do is just look at this scale. All right, so what I'm playing here is 10, 12, 14, 10, 12, 14, 10, 12, 14, and I don't really want you to worry about what key we're in and what scale we're using at this point. This is going to be more of a technique lesson, so let's just focus on what I'm playing here and then what you're going to do to make this better for you, okay? So I'm playing 10, 12, 14 three times, and then I'm playing 11, 12, 14, and then I'm playing 12, 13, 15, and then 12, 14, 15. Okay, so it looks like this. Now, if you've done anything like this before, you're already saying to yourself, yes, that's how I play it, or no, I play that a little bit differently in terms of the fingers that you're using. Okay? So the first thing I want you to notice, I'm playing what we refer to as a spread fingering, and I'm doing that three times. So 10, 12, 14, three times. Now, when I play this, I use my first finger, my middle finger, and my pinky. It's what feels most comfortable to me. I know some other players that will use their first finger, their third finger, and their pinky, and again, it works just fine. So that's the first situation I want you to think about is what are the most comfortable positions for the three options that we have, and we see all three options in this position that I'm showing you right now. One is the spread fingering. You're going to have to decide whether you want to play 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 4, or I suppose some people would even play 1, 2, 3, and none of them are right or wrong. It's just what works better for you in the general sense. Now, we're going to get into more specifics in just a little bit here, but let's just start with that. So you'll see that I'm using my 1, 2, and 4. That works best for me. Now, when I get to the next string, I've got to move in, and I'm going to play 11, 12, and 14 on the third string. So I'm going to be playing 1, 2, 4 again, but you'll notice my first finger moves in. Okay? So that's how I would approach that shift from the spread fingering to the 1, 2, 4, or the shift up with my first finger, is I would just move that first finger up and I'm done. Okay? But let's look at that pattern for a second. This is what we often refer to as the 1, 2, 4 because I'm playing 11, 12, 14. I could be anywhere on the fretboard. But it is possible to do this with your first finger, your middle finger, and your third finger as well. For me, that just feels really awkward, so I don't really do that very often. I will almost always opt to do the 1, 2, 4. Now again, we're going to expand this across the fretboard in just a little bit, and you'll see how things kind of change, and then you can decide what works best for you. So here's the next thing. I'm going to be moving from 11, 12, 14 to 12, 13, 15. So I'm shifting up yet again. All my fingers are moving up. Okay, so right there you'll see that for me, I'm moving the entire shape up. My 1, 2, 4 moves up a half step and I'm playing 1, 2, 4 again. And it's very comfortable for me. You may wind up doing something else, okay? But again, I'm going to get to that in just a second. I know I keep saying that, but I really will. So 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4. All right, when I get to the 12, this is where it becomes a little more difficult, is now I've got to play 12, 13, 15, which I was doing 1, 2, 4, to 12, 14, 15, which now you're going to see I'm using my first, my third, and my pinky. Okay, so once I get there, I'm doing a 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 4, and that would be a standard setup for me. You know, if you tried to do like a 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, you certainly could try and do that, but you have to figure out what works best. Now, again, we're talking about playing these at faster speeds. If you're playing this nice and slow, do all sorts of different things as far as your fingers go. But when you're trying to create speed and accuracy, you have to sort of decide what's going to work best for you. So for me, playing this position, it all seems fairly logical. When I'm playing a spread fingering, I'm doing 1, 2, 4. When I close it in and I play 11, 12, 14, or 12, 13, 15, I'm playing 1, 2, 4 again. And when I get to 12, 14, 15, I'm playing 1, 3, 4. And again, I would say that most people probably, that's a standard setup for them. If yours is different, that doesn't mean that that's bad. It just means you're doing something that feels better for you for whatever reason. But let's zoom in even further and see a logical situation where this might change. So let's say I'm playing this 12, 14, 15 on the first string, and I want to make a speed pattern of this. Now I could use my 1, 2, 4 and see how that feels, but I might try and use 1, 2, 3 and find that it actually feels more comfortable, and for me, oftentimes it does. When I'm sitting in one position like this, and I'm playing that pattern, it feels better to use 1, 2, and 3 for whatever reason. It's not that I don't use the 1, 2, 4, because I certainly do. But if I was just sitting here trying to repeat this pattern, I might move into this 1, 2, 3 just because it feels a little bit better. So you see, I'm breaking away from the logic that my brain tells me I'm supposed to do because the teacher said I was, or the book says I'm supposed to, and that's all fine. You just have to figure out what works best for you. And there's lots of different scenarios of something like this. So let's say I was playing up here in the smaller frets, and I've got something like let's say I'm doing 17, 19, 20. And I'm trying to make something up there. A lot of times, if your fingers are bigger, you'll find that the 1, 2, 3 actually works better than the 1, 2, 4. Okay, so that might be an option. If you're in the thicker or the wider frets, you might be using a different fingering simply because it feels better. But when you get to those thinner frets, you have to rethink this. Well, let's think about this a little bit further. Let's say I wanted to create a pattern that moves across the guitar this way. So I start doing something like this. Okay, so with that pattern, what I'm doing is playing in G major or E minor or whatever it is you'd like to call this. I'm playing 2, 3, 5, and then 3, 5, 7, and then 5, 7, 8, and then 7, 8, 10, and then 8, 10, 12, 10, 12, 14, and then 12, 14, 15. So I've got those three ideas sitting here, the 1, 2, 4, the 1, 3, 4, and the spread fingering, and they're just reoccurring over and over and over as I move across the guitar. So I start with a 1, 2, 4, go to a spread, and then I go to a 1, 3, 4, then I do a 1, 2, 4, and then 2 spreads, and then a 1, 3, 4. And what I want you to notice again, I don't want to get too deep into the scale itself because that's a whole other conversation, but I want you to see how they're connecting together. So the last 2 of the previous group of 3 becomes the first 2 of the next group of 3. All right? So as I'm playing this, because I've practiced it a certain way, I tend to always use 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 4, and then the spread would be 1, 2, 4 as well. You have to figure out what's going to work best for you to automate this as best you can. Now here's the situation. When you get into those thinner or those smaller frets, let's say I kept going. So I went like this. But right here, I want to keep going. So I go, I'm just going to repeat the same thing I did down here 1 octave higher. So I have. Now as I get up here, I might find that those frets just are too small. So as I'm playing, watch this. If I go, they get kind of small. I have small hands and they get kind of small. Okay? So what you might wind up doing is at a certain fret, you flip over and start using 1, 2, and 3 just because it feels better. So you might do something like this. And notice right there what I did was when I went to 15, 17, 19, I started using these 3 fingers instead. I'd have to train myself to be able to do that, okay? And if I decided to go backwards, for instance, or whatever it is I'd like to do, again, I've got to decide if I want to make things more uniform or if I want to make certain situations different than others. Like right now what I'm doing as I'm descending, I'm using my logic of 1 2 4 1 3 4 and then my spread. Okay, but you might decide that there's some sort of shift that you need to do to be able to fit your fingers in there, or it just feels better. Bottom line here, when you're playing, you're either playing patterns, which we can kind of call a scale, right? I mean, a scale really is a pattern, a shape on the guitar, where you're playing some sort of prescribed idea that moves up and down the fretboard this way. And you develop a speed concept. Everything that I'm talking about right now is utilizing 3 notes per string. So we're developing these 3 ideas of the spread fingering, the 1 2 4 and the 1 3 4. And you have to figure out what's going to work best for you in each one of those positions as you move across the guitar. But the other thing is you got to start thinking about positions moving horizontally. You might be in one position playing the same thing over and over and over. Again, if I went back to this and decide what works, whatever it is you might want to explore. Something like that, and deciding what fingers are going to work best for you. So what we have is horizontal. We've got this single position idea where we're staying on one string and we're trying to create something. And then we've got a movement idea. So if you think about it, you're thinking about the guitar vertically and how you want to approach the fingers that you're using when you're playing 3 notes per string. You've got moving horizontally and how you're going to approach that. You may approach it exactly the same way, but you can see where you run into a couple of problems, especially when the frets get smaller, whether or not you're going to approach that. So let's say you're playing and you're soloing and you're going to be up here in these higher frets. You might find yourself predominantly playing those 3 fingers, 1, 2, and 3, instead of 1, 2, and 4, just because it feels better to you. Okay? And then the other thing, the third one, is just staying in one position. You might find that there's something better that works for you. Let me show you just real quick. I don't want to take too much of your time, but let's go back to this 12, 14, 15 and look at where this might become a very logical thing that we would want to do. Let's say we wanted to do something where we start adding in the pinky over here. So now we start trying to do right, so now I'm going. Well, now all of a sudden it makes sense to have my pinky out here because it needs to be available. It'd be very difficult to be doing this and then jump up and then go back. So this becomes a logical thing. Or maybe I'm doing something pentatonically where I want that pinky out here and I want to be able to play the top of the pentatonic. So I start developing some sort of lick that I like. But I need my pinky out here on 17, and the other 2 are covering 12 and 15. Again, that would be a very logical thing to do. It's moving us out of our comfort zone of always using 1, 4. For instance, in the pentatonic, we often learn to play pentatonic this way. So we're using 1, 4 on the top. Not everybody does that. Oftentimes you see people playing 1, 3 all the time. And I keep repeating myself, but it's really important that you understand that. There is no right or wrong. It's just what works best for you when you explore this, but be aware of this so you can start trying to refine what works best for you. You need to try different things out and see what seems like it's smooth for you, and then start developing that in your playing. I think even for people like me that have been playing a long time, you're constantly second-guessing things, going, well, how is that? And does that work better? And then you try it, and maybe it does and maybe it doesn't. And especially when you go to actually jam with your band or you're writing songs or whatever it might be, you find that certain things just are the automated elements that you go to. So when you go to play that thing, you always wind up moving to this certain fingering. Like if I move up here, all of a sudden I'm playing 1, 2, and 3 more. And if you are, embrace that and figure out how to make that better for yourself. So just a little bit of thought process here for you to think about to try and better your guitar playing. So take care and stay positive. Hey, thank you so much for watching. Make sure that you click the subscribe button so you're always notified when I have new videos. And if you need help choosing a guitar course that's perfect for you, make sure that you click the Help Me Choose link in the description.